Hello there. Thank you for joining us on the press this morning. I am Frank Omalape.
And I am Adiola Olawi.
Well, of course, this program is coming to you from Abuja studios. And Adiola, good to see you. Some of the headlines that I'm seeing here for me, I think the one that for me is of great concern right now is the insecurity situation. And that story has been trending since the beginning of the week. But now, the new thing there is that the Arewas are coming out to talk to about these, and they are so concerned about the security situation especially in the northeast.
It shouldn't be taken lightly. If you think that because you're not in the north right now, or you're in a part of the north that is safe, or you're in the south and the east, I think it might get to you. If it's happening in the north, then we should all bear it in mind that it could happen anywhere in Nigeria. So that is why this shouldn't be taken with levity. These people, these kidnappers, these killers and bandits have to be fished out. And the senseless loss of lives every day, it seems as every day now, has to stop.
And the matter of the fact is that, the fact of the matter is the fact that a whole lot of people have been calling for restructuring of security architecture in the country quite a while now, and even when some of these chief in some of these security agencies like the naval, the navy, I beg your pardon, and of course the army, and you talk about the air force, some of these chiefs, I heard that their time it was time for them to retire, but they were never called for retirement. So I think it's time for the government to begin to look in that direction.
Yes. We need to take a deeper look at security structure to see what we can do to better the way things are. If you see some regions are actually clamoring, some regions are clamoring for a kind of a region-based, state-owned security outfit that understands the terrain, understands the people, and know how best to combat the situation over there. So I think the government should take this more like the governors and community people are trying to end the problems they are facing, rather than taking a look at it like, okay, they're trying to stand on their own. I think the stage at which we're in right now, there has to be a solution, and that solution has to come from the people.
It has to come from the people. I can't better put it, much better than that. Okay, let's head straight to some of the headlines as we begin from Captain Pose. Interesting and worrisome headlines this morning as regard the insecurity situation and of course the COVID-19 situation in the country. But let's begin with this one now, the big one on Captain Post. Fresh 573 COVID-19 cases take total to around 16,658 as Lagos, Rivers, Oyo, Edo top list. Okay, ABU's ex-vice chancellor Emeritus Professor Ladipo Akinkugbe dies in Ibadan. So sad there. Additional probe. Teacher, don't teach me nonsense. Well, you can check details of that story on Kaftan Post. Dino Melaye, court fixes June 30 for judgment in anti-infectious diseases bill in surge. And Saudi Arabia mulls cancellation of 2020 Hajj due to COVID-19. This one is in entertainment. Burna Boy, Rema make 2020 BET Awards nomination. So that's all for you on the Kaftan Post. You can check details on www.kaftanpost.com.
Now moving on to the Nation newspaper. Labour seeks tax court interest rate reduction. Experts oppose demand. Airline asks for flying Naira Marley to Abuja. Flight approved for George. Showcase Lagos Senator Oshinowo dies at 64. Buhari Tinubu mourn. And other stories include eminent scholar Professor Akinkugbe dies at 86. 799 in police net for rape, says IG. And to the major headline here, government to Nigerians. Battle against virus in your hands. And here are the interesting riders. People's attitude course of rising positive cases. Reopening of schools, viewing centers dangerous. resident doctors on strike over unpaid allowances. And now let's take a look at the global cases of coronavirus. Right now we have 8,090,326. Death, 438,001. Recovered, 4,179,885. Now to COVID-19 cases in Nigeria, we have 16,658. Death, 424. Recovered, 5,349. Active, 10,885. And here the right is attached to COVID-19 cases. Federal government rakes in 1.6 billion naira to tackle virus, while frontline health workers have not been paid by SGF. Patients without symptoms can transmit virus, says WHO. Airlifting of stranded Nigerians to end next month. Now let's look at other stories. Obaseki's disqualification final, says Oshiomhole. Villa-Pale can save Governor. Wike clad back his PDP move. Southern Kaduna seeks UN protection. Bagudu to pursue all-inclusive growth. And here is a picture story. No social distancing. Shoppers struggle to enter a store in Oxford Circus, London, against the coronavirus protocol social distancing observance yesterday.
Okay, so let's proceed to the punch now. The big one here, Obaseki, National Working Committee visits Aso Rock to counter APC governor's moves. Let's take a look at some riders now. Oshiomhole-led committee present certificate to new Edo governor. Governor will soon join us. Won't get automatic ticket. State PDP. Disqualification saga. APC has killed NGF since 2015, says Wike. Okay, let's take a look at few ones here. Federal government refineries earn 3.45 billion naira, and Napins makes about 1.02 trillion naira. That's according to NNPC. 5 million naira bounty place and Castina tax mastermind declared wanted. And a few ones here, and then we can shut down on the punch. Don't open schools, viewing centers, stadium now. Federal government one state. And finally, Nigeria recorded 717 rape incidents in 5 months. That's according to Inspector General of Police.
About that.
717 rape cases in the country. That will be all with the Punch newspaper.
Now moving on to the front page of The Guardian. Tension as resident doctors begin strike amid COVID-19. What we want from government by strikers. NERDs and ISPA treating patients from action. It may worsen doctor-to-patient ratio, spike death. PSN threatens industrial action over PCN chairmanship. And now to the major story. Outrage as worsening insecurity is north. Northern coalition insignificant, says presidency. SAC service chiefs now. Ethnic nationalities charged Buhari. Federal government gets 14 days ultimatum to end killings. Admit failure, seek help, can tells president governors. And now to other stories. Nigeria Governors Forum toothless. Bulldog, says Wike. Federal government Gencos may land in UK court over 13.2 billion naira electricity bill. Don't reopen schools, other public places yet. Federal government wants state. And finally, mother of 4 sexually violated, murdered in Imo.
Okay, the Punch newspaper now. Let's just take a few ones. Of course, there are not too many headlines on, beg your pardon, Daily Sun rather. A big one here. Northern coalition to Buhari, stop killings within 14 days. Cause for sack of security chiefs. Edo APC government ticket crisis. Presidency's move to save Obaseki flops. That's the trending stories all along, running story rather. Federal government rejects schools, viewing centers reopening. Okay, I think that will be all I can take from the Daily Sun.
Now on the Nigerian Tribune, Lagos Senator Oshiomhole dies at 65. Nigeria loses 29 billion US dollars annually over power failure, Senate President. Kaduna removes roadblocks at state boundaries. And now to the major story. BTF warns against schools reopening. And here are the riders. As Oyo reopens schools for Primary 6, GSS 3, SS3, June 29. Lagos warns private schools proprietors on opening of schools. Naira Marley, Aviation Minister suspend executive jet services. And here are other stories included on the front page. Court upholds Oba Onokade's installation as Alakene of Ikene. Wadume Falana writes, AGF demands immediate arrest of soldiers who killed policemen. Nigeria recorded 717 rape cases in 5 months, IGP. Obaseki not guaranteed victory is incumbent Oshiomhole. And here are the riders. As APC governors, National Working Committee meets with Chief of Staff at Villa. Governors Forum now toothless bulldog, Beggars Forum, Wike. Obaseki's disqualification, impunity unimaginable, it says. APC's treatment of Ambode, Obaseki's horrendous, Clark. And so finally, Ayako Adeshino Otegbayomon as Professor Akinkugbe dies at 86.
All right, let's continue with the press, and let's take this time around Vanguard. This seems to be a lot of headlines on the front page of the Vanguard here. Arawa youth give federal government 14 days to rend insecurity in North. Indigenous people of Katsina demand state of emergency, and why Northern CAN, that's its Christian Association of Nigeria, seeks end to insecurity in region. My troops are millions of Nigerians, Ango Abdullahi replies. Presidency. Though 2020 APC governors failed to save Obaseki, APC's National Working Committee meets Gambari, that is the chief of staff there to the president. Incumbency doesn't guarantee victory. That's according to Oshiomhole. All right. So let's take finally with this business story here. And it says Nigeria's oil exports to fall by 50% this year. But let's take a look at the picture story here. COVID. Wiki addresses press conference. You can see that on the screen for you. Governor Nyesom Wiki of Rivers State addressing a news conference on the first report on the number of health workers infected with COVID-19 in Rivers State, as was alleged or allegedly given by the chairman of Nigeria Medical Association Rivers in Port Harcourt yesterday. That'll be all the front page of Vanguard.
Now on the Washington Post, Supreme Court decision underscores an election year challenge for Trump. Trump is set to unveil proposals for police overhauls. CDC, a patient with underlying conditions 12 times more likely to die from coronavirus. And finally, liberal groups land Biden's response to police protest movement.
Okay, this one is the New York Post now. And of course, these are the two papers introduced this morning. Interesting one. But let's take a look at this one. An unexpected breakthrough for LGBTQ rights. Supreme Court rules to protect gay and transgender workers. The court's suspension of transgender rights under court's recent restrictions imposed by the Trump administration. Another one saying Mike Pence tells governors to repeat misleading claim about outbreaks. And finally, New Yorkers flatten the curve with social distancing, but now they are dropping their guard. That'll be all on the foreign news, on the foreign scene here, there with the New York Post and Washington Post. Okay, you're still watching the press. We'll take a moment, and when we come back, it'll be time for more analysis. Please stay with us.
Welcome back. It's time to take a dig at top stories on our dailies. And with us in the studio today is Bayo Jimo, a journalist. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
Okay, there is a story on the Nigerian Tribune that says PTF once again schools reopening as Oyo reopens schools for Primary 6, GSS 3, SS 3, and on June 29th. And when we look at the story, we see that more eminence is paid to what the PTF is saying, that no school in Nigeria should be open. I would like you to give us your take on the story, and do you think it is ripe for Nigeria to reopen schools now?
Of course, if we can partially open churches and mosques, I think it is ripe for schools to open. However, we must look at what the governor said. He said for SS3, GSS3 and Primary 6, which implies that the capacity of the school can still contain them, because before now it used to be from GSS1 to SS3, for example. So the pupils can be spread across all the classes. So I think if we can come with that measure so that the student will not be staying home, and we know that these students want to write exams for promotion, so that will not be delayed and lessons and all that thing. I think for the capacity, maybe we can say 25%. It's okay to reopen those caliber of students or pupils to come to school. It's okay, it's fine. Because we have churches they said they should operate at 25% capacity. So these students too, they can, especially for those that want to write promotion exams.
Yeah. You know, the government fear, again, on the other side, is to reduce the impact. Of course, that impact has generated and has also, you know, led to the increase in the rising of cases that we have in Nigeria at the moment.
But this same government no phantom this fact when they ask churches to open. If you ask churches to open for 25% capacity, school too can open for 25% capacity. As a matter of fact, I believe that the younger pupils can best manage the COVID-19 measures well than the elderly ones, because they have teachers who will tell them that sit down here, don't go out, wash your hand, and they listen to their teachers, but unlike the churches.
Now, taking a look at the headline, PTF once again schools reopening, and do you think that the paper, for paying more attention to what the PTF is saying, do you think they're taking a side and insisting that the opinion of the PTF reigns over the school reopening?
You see, of all the, let me say, Nigerian newspaper, all newspapers across the globe, they have editorial policy. Some tend towards government, some against government, some choose to be neutral. So I think for this headline, I don't have any issues with it. The way it's captured, I'm fine with it.
Okay, let's look at, before we head to business quickly, Vanguard is reporting similar story, just like Daily Sun is reporting. For instance, for Daily Sun, is saying Northern Coalition to Buhari, stop killings within 14 days, calls for sack of security chiefs. And Vanguard also take the same story, but from different perspective now, as Arewa Youth give federal government 14 days to end insecurity in Northeast. This story has been a running story in the past few days. How would you report this story differently?
Well, the way the story has been captured, it has shown that the group are saying the president should do something about it. And it is true. The Northeast, or the killings, the banditry now has been on for a while, and it involves lives of people. Seems for the past 2 months now, effort has been more on the coronavirus, where people are dying on a daily basis, on banditry and whatever you can call it. Right. So I think the way the headline is captioned is fine, and the president too should be more proactive. The issue of the service chiefs, for moral sake, I don't think they should be there, because people who are supposed to be promoted, they are not. Of course, they should. But I don't know why the president insisted that they are the best to do the job. Me, as an individual, they are not. They've overstayed. They should leave.
Okay, let's go to business right away here. Nigeria's oil export to fall by 50% this year. Another story, of course, earlier in the week, we heard giving hope to Nigeria economy for the fact that the crude oil is beginning to rise. The prices of crude oil is beginning to rise in the international market. As at yesterday, it was around $32 US. So, is it kind of ray of hope? Are we trying to, look beyond the impact of COVID-19? Are we too ambitious with what is happening now? If you see this headline, that's what Vanguard is saying.
Yeah, you see, the issue of the oil benchmark, it has not been stable for now. When the amended budget was submitted, the Senate or the National Assembly agreed that it should be at $25 per barrel.
Right.
And the executive proposed like 30. After the budget has been passed, on the day they were supposed to pass the budget, they made another amendment too from 25 to 28. So what they are trying to say is that since the thing is peaking, fine, it will peak, but it is not going to be the way it used to be before the COVID-19. For example, the capacity of people who engage, to extract oil it's a process. The number of individuals that are employed to do this will be affected too. So back to the question of whether the capacity is going to slow. Definitely it's not going to increase, but probably the price can come up, but what we used to produce is not going to be as it used to be.
Because the reason why I'm asking, or the reason why we're looking at this, is that the last time, especially with the revised budget, 2020 revised budget, even with what was done there, there's no much difference in the fact that
figures.
Yes, in the figures, because it's just an adjustment from one sector to
one to another,
to the other. And so, is that realistic enough?
No, of course.
Would you say that's a revised thing?
No, it's not realistic. So far, so good. I've seen states revising their budget, and I think the only state that have done something very fine and somehow realistic, 70%, I think is Ekiti and Lagos. Others are just it's not realistic. That's the fact. Even before COVID-19, Nigerian budget is not realistic. You just put up figures and say we want to do this, we want to do that. At the end of the day, we are just 35% performance. So that's it.
All right, moving on quickly to the foreign scene. There is a story that says Trump is set to unveil proposals for police overhauls. And I'm looking at the story in the sense that there's been serious agitation for it's calling for universal awakening about the racial injustice that's been going on, not just in America, all over the world. And when we look at the fact that it is not only the police that needs a sort of restructuring, we look at immigrations too at the airport, the way they treat foreigners, especially black people. Do you think that this should just be in the US? I mean, these whole restructuring of police, don't you think it should cut across all the globe?
Of course. In restructuring, what they are trying to do in the US is racism. In Africa, in Nigeria, it is tribe. Because with what is happening over there, they call it racist, but here it's called it tribal war and whatever. But restructuring that has to do with human, to start from, I think it's even from the blacks, because within ourselves too, there are issues. So it is when we address ourselves, we can now say, okay, come. This Stockholm syndrome has to stop. We just have to look for a way so that we can live together. So the restructuring starts across the globe, not only the US alone.
That brought me, it brings to mind as that yesterday or last week we're talking about the role that the US is trying to play with some of the members that it has at the AFDB board. Okay. I'm talking about the African Development Board and all of that against our own additional here. Do you think that was a bit of, would you classify that as also racism? Because they say we found something against this man.
Yeah.
So is there a war against the black and, of course, not just the black now, but Africa as a whole?
I don't think it's a war. As an individual, I think there's more into that, because just last week the vice president resigned, and the committee that said that found him not guilty before now suddenly came up again and said there is something.
So it means that there's something there, or
there's something there, but I can't 100% say, because you don't expect a black man to come and occupy the position. Sorry, a white man. So which implies that it is not just about racism. We should look more into that, not about racism alone.
But what does that tell us as blacks, as Africans?
It tells us that we are
in terms of leadership, really.
Yeah, it tells us that we just assume that we are not under colonialism again, but we are still somehow subjected to them, because I don't see why they will come up over there to come and dictate to us how we run our affairs. And not even because they dictate to us, we make it look as if we cannot do without them. Just this morning now, the Osun State governor said if there were no COVID-19, the deputy chief of staff who died would have been flown aboard. Look at that. So we make it look as if we can't even do without them. So it makes it look as if, so dominantly, if there are no COVID-19, half of these people will have, you know, we've refused to develop ourselves, and we run to them every now and then to ask for favor, call out only form of way they can get out of it.
Interesting. Okay, let's take a look at this final one. This one is from New York Post. Okay, and it says, the court's expansion of transgender rights on the court's recent restrictions imposed by the Trump administration. It's like a lot of, I mean, you know, a lot of things in the past, Trump has gotten away with it, but this certainly is not one of it, right?
Yeah, of course it is. You see, Donald Trump, the way he has been running the American system, or the democracy of American, it's making it look as if it's personal, or it used to be the Trump Towers. It makes it look like if I want to get this done, I will have it and nothing will happen. But now that this form of thing is coming up, it's make him sit tight. And don't forget that the election is coming by December. So just mention about how he wants to restructure the police. Ordinarily, if you were to be Trump of 2 years ago, we'll have go back to the Twitter and tweeting. But now I think it seems he's getting to his senses, and he knows that there's fire on the mountain.
But you know, the white majority don't believe that.
Yeah,
they don't believe that he's just running the U.S. I mean, like his own Trump tour.
Of course, majority, they definitely, you say majority don't believe that because he won the election, and you know how he won the election is another story entirely. Right. But we cannot say 100% that they don't believe. This is a contested theory.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll just have to leave it there. I'm going to ask you again, Adeola. I'm sure you have an interesting story, or your own favorite story of all some of the headlines that we've read out today. But for me, I think one interesting story, and I would like to follow in the next 1 week, is the fact that Arewa youth is giving federal government 14 days ultimatum to end insecurity in the Northwest. So this is the first time we're seeing the Northern youth coming up to speak, against the insecurity in the Northeast.
I share the same view with you, because I feel that if the elderly ones are standing up to injustice in the system, the younger generation that will soon take over the terrain of power should also clamor. In fact, they should be the one on the streets canvassing for a safer not than the elderly people who would soon leave the scene. So it should be their job, it should be their responsibility to ensure that everyone around them is safe.
And finally, Jimo, let's hear from you, your own favorite story or headlines today, or the best story you think.
I think it's I'll go with her, the Arewa story that they are giving the federal government ultimatum to end killings. Though we know that it's not going to end in 14 days, but at least it's make them sit tight and look at how they can restructure and once and for all push out the insecurity in our land. Bayo
Jimo is a journalist. Thank you for coming on the press.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay. And that's how we wrap it up here. We'll be back tomorrow. I am Frank Omalape.
And I'm Adeola Olawi. Please stay safe.